The status right now of black ash is in a really tough spot. The population is estimated to only be around 1,000 trees. And a lot of the sites that we have visited where there are black ash present, or supposed to be, there's nothing there.
So the importance of black ash it's culturally significant to Mi'kmaq people because they made baskets, and baskets were our people's way of life.
Maybe they can revive that. It's almost a lost tradition. It's just going like our language. It's almost lost.
If you die, you can't take that with you. So he says, what you know, knowledge you know now, show them.
Wisqoq, the Black Ash. When we think about Mi'kmaq, the land and its people, with all the traditions and the rich material culture, Black Ash is surely near the top of the list, important to the traditions in so many ways. It could be described as a cornerstone of the culture and the people's relationship to the land. The wood is strong, flexible, easy to work with, and has been used to make axe handles, snowshoe frames, canoe ribs, and of course, baskets of various sizes for hundreds of years. In the days of sail, the ash was important as hoops for sails on masts. Beyond all the practical everyday uses, the black ash became an important economic lifeline for many Mi'kmaq families who produced an array of baskets and tools for the growing immigrant population of Mi'kmaq. As a result of a combination of factors throughout Mi'kmaq, Wisqoq is threatened as a viable species. Mi'kmaq is situated on the periphery of the ideal environment for Wisqoq. The tree is thought to have always struggled to survive in any great number in this environment. With increased demand for agricultural land and other development, the areas where the tree most successfully flourished were compromised. Wetlands were drained, watercourses were altered, a hungry white-tailed deer population spread across the province. Wisqoq was sought out and harvested for a large cooperage industry, and the tree is difficult to take root. It's known to take up to 8 years for seed to grow.
Great.
When you get big, you're going to come back here and you're going to get some wood.
Yeah, remember where you planted it. You can come back and watch it grow every year.
This is mine. I'm going to come back and
Mi'kmaq Forestry has devised a strategy in an attempt to keep the black ash and the knowledge growing.
My name is Connor Howard. I'm from the Acadia Band. I work for the Confederacy of Mainland Mi'kmaq out of the Mi'kmaq Forestry Department as a forest stewardship officer. Right now, my main focus is on the recovery and stewardship of black ash here in Nova Scotia. There's two separate sides. There's the silviculture side, which is the training crews and having them work on lands to do treatments so we can eventually harvest the land and make money off the stumpage. But then there's my side, which is the stewardship side, which is more species at risk, providing habitat, and mostly just protecting the species. A lot of field work, data collection, and then hands-on stewardship.
My name is Alana Soloboy, and I'm from Sabaganagity, and I'm the community coordinator for Mi'kmaq Conservation, and I'm also the community coordinator helping with the Mi'kmaq Way Forestry. Today we had the Forestry Symposium. Our key points were to give all the findings that we had in our community workshops and to get some more feedback from community members about non-timber forest products. We hosted a series of 2 workshops per community for the 8 mainland communities. So we hosted one for elders, so we wanted to get their knowledge and information. And then we hosted, the second part was for harvesters and community members.
This workshop is important because of the black ash. It's on a major decline and there's not a whole lot of it around left, and we're actually trying to bring it back, and hopefully through these efforts here, they've actually managed to collect the seed and get a bunch of seedlings started so that they can start eventually going around to the reserves and replanting.
Mm-hmm. A lot of positive feedback. So we got just things people did as growing up, what they harvested for, what they gathered, just lots of stories of like when they grew up getting black ash, making baskets, harvesting sweetgrass, and just a lot of knowledge.
And then he'd bring it home and he'd saw it and he'd take it and then he'll plank it and break it up in squares and he'd pound it. And all it comes comes apart. Mm-hmm. And then he'll turn around and split them again and scrape them. And then that's what we use for make our baskets.
And when you get finished, you sit back and say, wow, that looked pretty cool.
Well, this traditional knowledge helps because these are people that have been there and they've done this for a long time. But then, like the science side, which I've gone to school for, which also helps, is I can use ArcGIS and mapping software to sort of overlay like where we've seen trees, so like wet deciduous sites and wet coniferous sites and floodplain. And then we can sort of put both of these together, and then that sort of helps us find like, new sites that we can plant or sites that still have trees that we can collect seed from. Like where we've seen trees, like Oxford Junction, it's a floodplain site, so a very rich site. But why it's important and why we're working with the Nature Trust is that it's the only site that I have been to that has continuous regeneration. So you have large, mature mother trees, and then you have the younger generation, so smaller saplings, and then you have seedlings. For most of the province, there's no regeneration, there's not many trees, and there's like no seedlings. Because the black ash is great for basket making because you can easily pound it and separate the rings. Really, you could cut the tree down and just remove the bark and pound it, and it'll separate the rings from it, or so you can make your strips. But you can make it easier by putting in a barrel of water, and then you can get your smaller strips from that. But basically, you can go from a big strip and keep making smaller and smaller strips, so you almost have like a piece of twine. That's where it's better than white ash, because white ash you can only get large strips and they're not as fine. As Mi'kmaq, that's definitely a goal we've had. Like I brought this up at the Ecom conference, the idea of sustainability. Because like, we talk about sustainability right now as sort of feeding the pulp mills, so having a continuous supply of wood. The way we look at sustainability when we're going to be doing our harvesting is looking at providing habitat for every species. Because right now we don't have much old growth forest in the province. And we need old growth for like pine martens and brown creepers, and of course like flying squirrel. So we want to continue on with basket making, of course, like it's a big part of our culture, and it used to be a means of a way of life for us and my grandfather. He used to make baskets and to sell. It's like I still use one of his backpacks today. So basically continuing on with that, we can use white ash, but the thing is you can't make the really nice ones that you can sell for a lot of money. Because with white ash, the strips, they're not as thick because they don't grow as slow. So black ash, you can't make it grow fast either. It has to grow at its own pace because you need these really nice fine rings. But back in the day, cooperage barrels, like everything at a Halifax port, of course, was shipped out, your fish, your grain, everything was shipped across the world in these wooden barrels. And so these wooden barrels, you need a flexible wood. So they would target the black ash. So you could use the large pieces of black ash for the staves, which would be the long sides. But then they would also harvest the smaller saplings. And these would be used to wrap tight around. So essentially they wiped out both generations of black ash. Because it takes so long for black ash to regenerate. You have your large mature trees, and there's usually a large gap, because you usually have very old trees and then very young trees. To grow a suitable tree for basket making, in ideal conditions, it would take 55 years.
What is the goal? What is it we want from black ash? Do we want to keep it so that, it's in our memory, so that we know what it looks like, that we recognize the cultural significance of it? Or, do we want to try to enhance it to such a degree that we can harvest it? And are we willing to wait, 80 to 100 years to do that? And sit down with community members and have those conversations and make sure that, that it comes out that, there's trade-offs. We can do this, but that's at the cost of this, right? So, what is it you want to do? And it's not saying that things are wrong, but it's to make sure that that the issue has been fully discussed, and that it's supported by the community as a whole, and that's challenging.
Mi'kmaq Way Forestry endeavors to take on these and other challenges to fulfill their mission, to promote and restore the concept of Nedigalimk. They are guided by the principles of Nedigalimk and maintain an ongoing dialogue with elders, community knowledge holders, and crafters who have been identified as having specific knowledge regarding Wisqoq.
All right. What take was that? My father was Bernard Toney. He was one of the great basket makers in the valley. And we live in a farm area where there's a lot of potatoes and apple picking that went on over the years, and it still is today. But back then, our apple baskets that we used to make used to sell for $1 a piece. And that was a lot of money back in the 50s. And we'd turn out probably 100 baskets a day. We had 9 kids in our family, my mother and father, so with 11 of us we had like a basket factory. And we had a workshop in the basement of our house, and pounding ash went on one area, whittling the ash stuff out in another area. And then my mother used to take the splints apart, and my sister. Then my father would scrape everything, so those were fine. And he'd make the tops for the basket, the hoop in the middle and the one on the outside. We'd nail that together so it was good and strong. And he'd put slats, he'd call that, on his basket as well to make them stronger underneath. And there was just a splint. You'd go through the center of the basket and the bottom and the outsides and run them up like that. That made a stronger basket. So I grew up in that kind of environment every day through the winter months making baskets. And I make them today not on a commercial basis, but just to teach younger people the craft on how to do it, how to find the wood in the woods and so on.
I guess I've always known about baskets because my parents were basket makers. I guess the big thing I didn't realize about basket making was that it's an art. That over time, it is a way for my parents in their time to put food on the table. But when you look at the finished product, it is a work of art. And I would see my backyard filled with many baskets because they didn't make them by one at a time. They made them in like 50 at a time or 100 at a time. And they were at a stage where, when I say I seen them in my backyard, is they would dry them. So my whole backyard would be full of apple baskets that were in the process of being dried so that they could put the next step on it, which is the food. So I've always known about baskets and never, I guess the word appreciation would have to be used because I never appreciated that art. I just thought that's what my mom and dad do, and I would see truckloads of baskets going off to the farmers, and well, it was no big deal, right? So it took me a long time to decide that I was going to make baskets.
Most of this next project is going to be working a lot with elders, so basically Aboriginal traditional knowledge of where these trees once were, or where they have harvested them, or just because in the Mi'kmaq communities a lot of people did use ash, like my grandfather, because The data points that we have right now, there aren't any points that are directly on the Mersey, but I know for sure my grandfather used to go up the Mersey and go harvest trees. In my eyes, yes, that is what two-eyed seeing is. It's like you have your Aboriginal knowledge and then you have the science side, but you can't use just one or the other. You need to use both. The most common wood is the white ash. A lot of people still use the white ash. And I mean, we're gonna have white ash for a long time. It grows well in a lot of conditions. But then we also have the emerald ash borer coming, so we're still going to collect seed for white ash also. The emerald ash borer, it's a beetle that came from Asia, and I think it would have came over in like wooden boxes, because they can lay dormant in the wood as a larva. And then I guess it would have hit the shores here, and ever since it's been just destroying the ash. This year alone, I think it destroyed 28 million trees. Most of the damage is being done out in Manitoba and Alberta right now. But it's moving its way across, but also in the States throughout Maine. I don't know if it's seeking more ideal wood or it's the changing climates. Because I can't really say because I'm not like a bug specialist, but.
There is a real concern that traditional uses and skills could be lost if Wisqoq were to become unavailable.
I said, I need to do this so I can teach my kids to do this. I don't want to lose it. That's what it is. I don't want our culture to lose something that has been a part of who we are. That's what these mean to me.
I felt a great sense of pride today because on a personal level, I really enjoy planting trees, and I kind of wanted to do the science part of it, but I really never knew what kind of wood they used until I started reading up on the black ash, and they talked about it. And it's a good thing that I work with Mary Lou and Becky, because they taught me a lot about the black ash and its purpose for basket making and how important it is to our people. And I said, you know what? I said, that's a teachable moment.
Due to habitat loss and the potential threat from the emerald ash borer, this species is not readily available to craft or create with. By documenting this process with elders and youth, the culture and history can be celebrated with an open dialogue about innovative ways to continue to create and keep the traditions alive in using species other than Wisqoq.
I'm teaching the language, but before, when we taught the culture, this is what we used to do. And then we used paper. I used paper. I draw pictures of baskets on a whole sheet of paper, and then I cut lines in them. And then when I cut paper about a half-inch wide, and then they weave them in and out. And then I learned them how to do the little curls, these things on the baskets. These, I learned them how to make these on paper, with paper. And sometimes we just weave a square, and then when they have that all glued on the sides, then they can make the little curls on the paper.
Difficult decisions need to be made today for the future. Donna Hurlbert understands this all too well. The answers lie within the community once consensus has been reached. First, let's come together, keeping open the dialogue, and determine the purpose for replenishing the species for today and the future.
And it's going to take the coordination of Mi'kmaq people with the province and government, with the forest industry. So there are things that individuals can do, and those same things large companies can do as well. And it's a matter of coming up with a strategy that we're all committed to, and so that all individuals understand, that their personal activities can have a big impact. It only takes one or two bugs to get into Nova Scotia to cause this to spread across the province and wipe out our already limited supply of black ash.
There is hope with the efforts we make today by teaching our youth and sharing our wisdom, that in 7 generations to come, Wisqoq will not be just a memory, but a living resource to continue our way of life.
Well, I hope they take up the culture of it, you know, how to look after the trees and how to use it.
Yeah. So I wanted the kids to learn about that, and I wanted the kids to take the initiative to say that, you know what, we planted these trees. This is part of our community. This is who we are. This is a part of our history that we must maintain, because if we don't, we are going to lose that knowledge.
But now they know they've planted something, and they're going to watch it grow. And math curriculum comes into it because they'll get to measure its growth over the years. They'll be able to do so much more, and then never know, it might be their grandchildren that get to harvest it. That would be a proud moment. Yeah, I think so.
Someday, you know, if Mother Nature cooperates with us, we'll have a lot of black ash trees. And for the conservation and the protection of that tree, I hope to one day that we develop the seeds from that tree, and we can nurture those seeds into trees again, so that the process will continue on. So you're not only getting Mi'kmaq language, you're getting history, you're getting social studies, you're getting language arts, you're getting your math about, you know, the distance of plant apart and stuff like that, and you're getting your science. So you're hitting all those curriculum outcomes that's required in education. It doesn't get any better than that. No.
Just my childhood and growing up with my grandfather, you know, making ash baskets. I didn't really think anything of it then. It was just kind of cool that he made baskets out of wood, and he also made me bows out of the wood. But I didn't realize until recently, once I started this position, that my backyard is one of the best sites for ash in the province. And I was thinking back, because I was heading home for Christmas, I was like, I bet there's ash there. I bet there's black ash there. So when I visited the site, lo and behold, it's full of black ash, and it was actually produced seed this year, but so that's unfortunate. I never got to collect seed from there. So really, I've been playing with black ash my whole life and didn't know it. So I don't know if it's just meant to be, or when I'm out in the field, I try to get people from the reserve, like young people. Like on Thursday, we went out to go and spray the black ash seedlings with a deer repellent, which is cow's blood and olive oil. So I got to take two that are in the youth program that's there. It sets them up for future employment. So I try to involve the youth as much as I can while I'm out in the field. Because a lot of people don't know where they want to go. And then once I get them out there, they're like, well, maybe I kind of want to do something like this. This is awesome. Like, I get to be out in the woods. I get to take my dog with me. Yeah.
For everything we take from the earth, we give back. If we take a tree, we plant a seed in its place, an ancient conservation practice only interrupted over the past 500 years. These non-conservation practices, such as clear-cutting, commercial use, pollution, and not replenishing what is taken, has caused the present-day situation. Often when a species is at risk, the relationship is also at risk. If the species is not available for traditional activities, then there is a risk of the next generation not having that relationship and losing some of the first-hand knowledge. The importance of recording the activities becomes as important as saving the species. This ensures that there is a record of how traditional activities were conducted, so if in the future the species is recovered, the knowledge can be shared by those that knew the trees and how they were used firsthand.
If you see anything funny happening with the tree, you should let somebody know so we can go have a look at it and make sure it's not getting sick. So we actually developed a website, so if you guys want to remember this name, Wisqoq.ca, you can actually go online and learn all about black ash, how to find black ash, and you can even get it on your little phones now. There's also a really cool thing on it that you guys might like. There's actually a coloring book that your parents can download and print off for you. You can get your parents to join Mi'kmaq Forestry, the Facebook page, and you can go to that website. What's that website called again? Wisqoq.ca.